this is Jim Verzino, and welcome to Greater Good Entrepreneur. Today we've got Philip Gilpin, founder of the Independent Television and Film Festival. Hello, Philip. How's it going today?
Good, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. The founder of the Independent Television and Film Festival, and was it you that started the festival? How did the festival get going? I know you're in Dover, Vermont. It came here from LA. It's a bit of a confusing story. Can you start us out just by letting us know what is the Independent Television and Film Festival? What sort of qualifies it to be? Well, I guess it's a nonprofit, so it's social entrepreneurship in that way. Give us some background to the story, could you please?
Sure. ITVFest was founded in 2006 in Los Angeles by a husband and wife team, AJ and Jenny Tesler. They were television producers at the time, and in 2006 is the simultaneous launch of YouTube. AJ and Jenny immediately saw that TV and web were going to merge quickly. At the time, nobody really understood what web was. A web series did not exist yet in the universe. And they decided to create the nation's first festival for people that were creating independent television pilots and web series to be able to get their work seen by professionals within the industry, very similar to a Sundance model. And that went in Los Angeles from 2006 through 2012. And then I took over mid-2012 and moved it to Dover, Vermont, where we've had the last three. So the one we just had in September of 2015 was the 10th annual, and next year is going to be the 11th.
Okay, so you took over the festival. I mean, and this is where I think the entrepreneurship piece of this comes in, because generally here at Greater Good Entrepreneur, we interview founders. You're not quite a founder, but really it seems like when this thing moved from LA to Vermont, that's a complete change. Was it essentially like starting it from scratch?
It was. The only thing that carried over from the LA days were its legal charter, its 501c3, its incorporation, and a few of the contacts. Other than that, the festival was completely rebranded. The word that everybody in the industry now uses is that it underwent a complete renaissance in terms of style and manner and shape. So in essence, we started from $0 and a vision and rebranded the whole thing, even though it had already existed prior. So yeah, it's fair to say that it started over again in the summer of 2012.
And with it, when you took it over, you took all of the financial responsibility, right? It wasn't as if this thing came with a bunch of sponsors and a pile of money coming with it, right? I mean, when you took it over, you took over all the liabilities as well as the potential upsides.
Correct. I took over, and it had $0. All I had was the brand access to the brand name. The original deal was when I even approached AJ about moving the festival to Vermont. It was such an outrageous idea at the time that the initial response was, well, how many movie theaters do you even have in Dover, Vermont? And at the time, we didn't even have one. The one that we had was closed. So how are you moving a television and web festival to a place where there are no theaters, first of all? And I had the notion that we could build them from the ground up. We could make these really interesting structures. They would be temporary. The festival would have that kind of rogue kind of independent mentality to it. And so we looked at the financials, realized it was going to cost about $150,000 to produce it. Did some math, thought, hey, that's completely doable in terms of fundraising. So we set an initial deadline date of raising $50,000 by New Year's 2013. And if I was able to raise that 50 by then, AJ was willing to sign over the licensing rights. And I called him up on January 2nd and said, I don't know what to do with the extra $5,000. And he was pretty amazed. So it was, at first, that first 6 months, it was me going around to sources locally, friends and family, Vermont-based, organizational-based, the town, whoever I think would listen and buy in on what this dream could be. And we managed to meet that first hurdle and and got it going.
What has it become? Because I know when it first started, it had a couple of hiccups. Where has it gone in these years? I think was it I don't remember the magazine that said it's the coming Sundance of the East. Where has it gone in these 3 years? What did it start out as in the first year, and sort of where has it gone up till now?
Yeah, there was a set of expectations that I set, as all entrepreneurs do when they start a new project, thinking, okay, this is the really great scenario, this is the moderate scenario, this is the conservative scenario, and then this is the disaster scenario in terms of fundraising and money and income and what it would, how it would survive. I initially was under the impression that moving a major Los Angeles-based arts festival, which is what this is, TV, film, and web are in the arts, to an independent-minded place like Vermont was going to catch on so much fire in southern Vermont that raising the money through ticket sales was going to be absolutely no problem. There are somewhere north of 50,000 people within the a 25-minute to 30-minute drive radius of where we hold the festival in Vermont. We only needed 750 of them to turn out in order to pay the bills the first year for the festival, on top of the expected sponsorships and things that we received. So originally the idea was this was going to be a festival redone by Vermont. It was going to be Hollywood in Vermont, but it was going to be done on Vermont's terms, if you will. It was going to be independent-minded. It was going to be artistic. It was going to be organic. It was going to be honest. It wasn't going to be flashy and all of these things. That proved to be the absolute wrong scenario. Little did I know at the time. That first year, I think we had 11 people from Vermont show up. What happened?
11 people from Vermont
actually bought tickets that first year.
Okay.
So what happened was the outside visitors, the artists from around the world, and when I say around the world, I mean we have filmmakers that fly in from Spain, Australia, Canada, South America, Ireland, the Mideast. They became extremely excited about coming to Vermont because they have this romantic notion of visiting Vermont. A lot of them have never been here before. So we started off with two audiences, one local, one industry-based. I thought the industry-based audience was going to be the ones that were the hard sell to get here, and the local ones were going to be like, oh my goodness, the world's best and most incredible quality artists are showing up in our backyard. We can't wait to go. Turned out to be the exact reverse. So there's a great, little entrepreneurial lesson there is you can research all you want, but you never know what's really going to happen until you try it. So.
Well, I love the lesson of it because, when I work with entrepreneurs, I always tell them just try something and hopefully try to keep your risk low when you do it. And,
right.
And, putting on a festival is a $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 arrangement. I mean, it's got to be really hard for you to keep your risk low.
Yeah, the first couple years it is because we have to meet those minimum thresholds. And people ask me, why didn't you just, use somebody's barn or rent out the movie theater for a couple $1,000s? Why did you go out and spend $150,000 bringing in 3 tents and top quality audio video screens? Why didn't you just borrow somebody's projector? Why didn't you do it so that maybe you only made a couple $1,000s the first year, but at least you were showing a profit? And the answer was, that's not the product we wanted to build. Nobody would ever go and ask Pepsi or Apple to be like, yeah, why don't you just produce, the first generation of something that only works a little bit, but doesn't really look like anything like you actually want it to be when it gets released in full. I think of this festival and this economic development effort in Vermont as an exercise in quality. We had to go high quality from the start, or else nobody would have taken it seriously. People from the industry would have gone home and said, yeah, it's cute, but they held this screening in this person's barn or whatever. It's not really a high quality festival. So we had to go out and take the risk of actually spending the money to put it on properly, and that was calculated, but it was a dangerous risk nonetheless. So.
The ITVFest itself is a nonprofit entity, correct?
Correct. Yep.
But really the financial risk really was borne mostly or almost fully by you. So if you went, if you spent $150,000 and only 100 was coming in. That risk was really being borne by you, correct?
I am entirely personally on the line for everything. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you have you have an amazing tolerance for risk, I must say. But
the way I look at it is, I'm single with no kids. I'm not going to hurt anybody. So.
Well, that's good. I look at this as a social entrepreneurship play in that the people that you're serving to the industry are the independents, the people that don't have a lot of connections. The people with the great connections, they can get directly to the directors and the producers that have the big money. It feels to me like you're really feeding the opposite part of the industry, and that's what to me feels like, in addition to, of course, it being a nonprofit, nobody's making any big money off of this. If anything, usually money is lost, I know, and there's a lot of playing with that. But it feels like the social entrepreneurship play is you're giving a voice or a space to those that otherwise don't yet have one. Is that true, do you think?
That is true. There are two different communities that we're giving opportunities to. The first community is the artist community that are producing these independent television pilots and web series. They can't take their independent pilot to Tribeca or Sundance or Toronto or any of these other festivals yet. Those festivals are starting to incorporate TV pilot competitions, but they really have nowhere to go to share these stories. So, our challenge is with the word independent, people often think that means either low quality or poor, and poor financially. And those two things aren't true. What independent means is that it's being produced directly by the artist without any type of oversight, influence, or interjection from a major studio or network. So what you are seeing when you watch something that's called independent is you are seeing the artist's pure vision on screen, uninterrupted and unedited. And that's really important because you have a lot of TV shows these days, other than on like an HBO or a Showtime or any of these premium channels. A lot of shows are, they're overseen by FCC regulations and network brands, and they have to fit such and such type of, narratives. We give the artists a place where they get to produce what they produce and have it seen by people within the industry and seen by the general public directly. The second audience that we're helping in terms of a social entrepreneur style is the general public at large, because they are being deprived in a way of seeing new art. Imagine, for example, you went down to, the Metropolitan Museum of Fine Art in New York, and instead of having Picasso hang his painting on the wall, it had to go through 6 different development sessions and revisions before you were even able to see it. And in order for you to even know it existed, you had to have already been a member. Like, that's what happens in television, is you take these artists' stories and scripts, and they get so convoluted and diluted in the studio and network system that a lot of times they don't end up on screen the way that they were originally conceived. So we serve a dual purpose there. And then, thirdly, I'd add in where we're serving the economy of Southern Vermont. I mean, this is a major play for us to radically change what Southern Vermont is known for. Dover is currently known as a ski town. In a couple of years, my goal is to have more people know Dover as an independent television town than a ski town.
Wow, that's quite a goal, but it happened at Sundance, and based on the press I've seen so far, I really don't think that's that far away. Can you tell me kind of who was there, who's there looking at things?
Sure, yeah. This year we had one of the vice presidents of talent development from HBO was there. We have one of the heads of digital from CBS Interactive was present. Former agents from major players like ICM. We had STARZ Digital, with the head of STARZ Digital was there. You had casting directors. I mean, it's a mishmash of all sides of the industry. The goal is to make the connections between the artists and the executives so that the artists can move their career forward. You know, the reason we're a 501c3 is our mission statement is to advance the digital and literary arts, period. Very simple. And the way we do that is by breaking down this perceived barrier, you know, of trying to get, quote unquote, into Hollywood, if you will. And we're just building an honest pipeline for this new generation of artists to go through. They only survive based on the merit of their work and the quality of their personality. Every project is vetted through the same process, whether it is your first-time project and you're in college, or you are a person who has just won an Emmy and this is your side passion project, which we have a couple of Emmy winners with projects, you know, in the festival every year. In fact, this year we had, in the submission process, we had shows submitted to us with major, big-name comedy actresses, and they were not accepted because the show just wasn't very good. Meanwhile, we had, you know, unknowns who were producing amazing web series comedies who got their first set of screen time in front of executives from major networks. So we do not take any submissions. We do not make any of our selections based upon fame, popularity, who your agent is, how far you are in the industry, or anything like that. It's all purely merit-based.
You know, I want to step back for a second. There's a lot of that I want to explore, but I also want to explore your story. I think you were like a physics major. You were in Boston. You were in LA. Can you kind of give us your story of how you ended up in a tiny little town in Vermont when you didn't grow up there, when you were in LA with all the stars, and give us an idea of that trajectory.
Sure. The timeline. I grew up in Boston. My family's from there. I went to Boston College. As you said, I was a physics and math major. Graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Physics and Math from BC in 2003. I graduated young. I graduated when I was 21. I was exhausted from school. I just wanted to take 6 months and kind of just go be with some friends and hang out. So I went to Los Angeles, slept on a friend's couch for the first 8 weeks. Got a job working the overnight shift at the front desk at a hotel in Beverly Hills. I was the 11 to 8 shift. Was writing scripts during the day just to kind of keep my creative brain happy and, you know, just living life. And then about a year into being out there, I started to go, okay, I need to really start doing something, you know, credible and worthwhile now with my time, and started looking at jobs in the industry. And people always ask me the question, how did you get your job at HBO? And what happened was, after a few months of you know, really working hard at the hotel at nights and writing my scripts during the day, my roommate got really worried about me and said, hey, you don't look good. You haven't been out in a while. We're going out and we're going to a bar. I said, oh, okay. So we go out and there are these two women playing pool. And I said to my roommate, well, if we're going to be out, we might as well meet people. So we go up, we start talking, we start hanging out. And it turns out that one of the girls at the time in 2004 was in the business affairs department at HBO, and she was moving to finance. Well, I was, you know, a couple drinks into the night and complaining about how I hated my hotel job, and I have this degree in physics and math that I'm not using, and I love entertainment, and I had grown up in the theater and as a side hobby. And she said, well, why don't you apply for my job in the business affairs department? And I said, well, you don't even, you know me or anything. And she says, well, yeah, but I've already recruited 2 people to HBO this year, and if I get a third, I get a free trip to Italy. So I said, okay. And I mean, what the hell? So I applied the next day, and 3 weeks later, I was a business affairs analyst at HBO.
Wow.
And
what kind of shows did you work on there?
so my job there was to analyze the participation contracts and turn the actual contracts into physical checks for the talent. So the shows that I oversaw were The Sopranos, Curb Your Enthusiasm, 6 Feet Under, The Wire, Entourage.
Some real big ones. What is can you define for us what a participation contract is?
Yeah, participation. So every studio has a small little group of people that work in participations. And what that is if you're a major actor or producer of a show, for example, Sarah Jessica Parker on Sex and the City, or James Gandolfini on Sopranos, or David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, one of those higher up above the line level people. Included in your deal is you get a certain percentage of the net receipts of what the show makes. And you'll hear that all the time, referred to as a back-end deal. Somebody has to actually do the work of taking that negotiated deal on paper, figuring out how much money the show has made worldwide, figuring out what all of its expenses are worldwide, figuring out how much money's left, and how much of that goes to whom. That there's no computer system that does that. So that was my job. Was, if Sarah Jessica Parker wanted her advance for season 5, my boss would come in and say, "Hey, we have to go negotiate, her deal tomorrow. How much is she expected to earn, and what should we be offering her?" That kind of work.
Okay, it's kind of interesting. Most regular people, we never really know what goes on in the back end of the business side of TV and movies, and it's really interesting to sort of hear that. It sounds like you were involved in that. Okay, so you're in LA, you're working on huge shows, you're on the phone every day with Sarah Jessica Parker and James Gandolfini. How do you turn that into whatever was next? Did you go right from that to the ITVFest?
No, what happened was I started producing my own short films outside of work. And at one of the holiday parties, I met the gentleman who was the head of HBO Films at the time. And
this is what? This is around 2000, 2005? When
this is 2000. This is 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. And I started making some of the shorts and stuff. And what happened was one of my friends at the office caught wind that I was producing things, and he was the one who knew AJ and Jenny, and AJ and Jenny at the time in 2005 were conceiving the idea of ITVFest. And my friend just said, "Hey, you're making shorts, you work at HBO. I have these two friends who are creating the first independent television festival for pilots and web series and stuff. You guys should have lunch. You're across the street from each other." And so I went and had lunch with AJ. He told me what the festival idea was. I said, "That sounds great. Maybe we can get HBO to be a sponsor of it." So I attended the festival that first year just to see it, just to experience it, and see what the community was all about. And that was summer of 2006. Had a great time, saw that, yes, there's a lot of raw talent here. Went back to HBO, got HBO to be a sponsor in 2007. And then in 2008, I left the industry entirely. I wanted nothing to do with entertainment anymore. I realized that I could spend the next 20 years sitting in the same office doing the same thing every day, which I know doesn't sound like a horrible life to some people, but to me it was the beginning of the end in terms of my young, naive little 25-year-old brain. And I left to start a science-based nonprofit focused on disaster mitigation. I had enough fun time playing in the industry and wanted to go back to my physics and math roots. Halloween of 2008 was my last day at HBO, cashed out my 401k the next day to start my nonprofit, and 2 weeks later the global economy crashed.
A nonprofit in disaster mitigation?
Yep.
So a little bit of full disclosure here. I've done a little bit of work at the ITVFest myself around social entrepreneurship. That happened a couple of years ago. So I have known Philip before this, and we've actually known each other for a couple of years behind the scenes here. I don't know if did you know that I worked in disaster mitigation for about 5 years and sort of along my tours and travels in the entrepreneurial world?
I had no idea.
Yeah. Wow, that is quite remarkable. Okay, yeah. So you go and you start a nonprofit in disaster mitigation. What happens then? The economy falls apart.
The economy falls apart. By April of 2009, I have $100 left to my name in an apartment in San Francisco, and a friend in Vegas says, "Hey, I work at a hotel out here. You can always just get a job if you need to get some money back to pay bills." I said, "Okay." I went to Vegas, took a job at the Venetian Hotel for a little bit, went back to the front desk there.
And what are you now, about 26 years old approximately?
That was 2009, 2010. So I was 28.
Okay. All right. So you're getting there now. You're about time you're starting to think, I need to get some base underneath me.
Yeah. It's time to grow up and all that. And so I was just, working and living in Vegas. And one day, got the phone call that my dad was sick. He was diagnosed with a major illness, and my parents, so just to back up, when I moved to Los Angeles in 2004, my parents were empty nesters because my sister went to college the same year, and they decided to leave their suburban Boston house and buy an inn in Dover, Vermont. So in 2010, I got that phone call, hey, Dad's sick. We need some help running the inn. I was floating around. I was like, yeah, I'm at this job that is whatever. I can leave for a few weeks and come back and help. So I did. I came back and spent a winter here helping them run the inn. And that's really where the story for ITVFest in Vermont begins, because what happened then was I fell in love with the town. I fell in love with the simple, pace of life, and I started building the garden on the side of the inn, or renovating the porch, or redoing the rooms, and really kind of took the inn on as my own project while my dad was recovering. And in 2011, I had become, I had known pretty much in the whole community, everybody in the community. There's only 900 people in the town, so it's not like it takes a lot to get to know everybody.
Wow, that's a small town.
Yeah, and people had started just to get to know me. I was one of the only people who were under the age of 40 who had a professional career background, and they were looking for a new head of the local chamber of commerce. So I applied there. They said yes. That was summer of 2011. I lasted for 3 months. Some of the older board members were not happy with the pace and the way in which I was changing things. And so I decided to take my list of economic development ideas that I thought I had been hired to implement at the chamber, and decided to open up my own economic development firm. And that was 2012. And then that's why I ended up calling AJ that summer and saying, hey, I'm here in this town. I'm looking for new opportunities and new things to bring to town. What's going on with ITVFest? And he said, well, Jenny and I just had a kid. We can't really run it anymore. We outsourced it to this group of guys in LA, and they're absolutely horrible people, and they ruined the reputation of it, and it's really in limbo right now. Nobody has the rights to it. And that's where the story combines, and all of a sudden I said to him, well, I think we should move it here. I'm going to go raise the money for it. We're going to do this, and the rest is what's happened. So.
Okay, so really, it was really a dead entity. Meanwhile, you've started a business around disaster recovery. You've moved around a couple times. You've had sort of a bunch of up and downs already, and that's when this thing sort of turns into its own entity then.
Right, and if it hadn't been for failing at basically what felt like failing at life earlier, it went out between LA and the charity and everything else, I don't think I would have had the mentality or aptitude to take on a risk like this if I was still in the mindset of, I have to have, a perfect credit score, or everything in life has to play by the rules. This was something that required, like you said, an ability to not really worry about how it could go wrong, because there were so many ways. And so it was interesting over time to look back at how those things that happen to you when they seem like they're the ends of the road actually end up eventually coming around and being lessons that you use to do something bigger in the end. So. Right.
It's quite remarkable, actually, because you start this economic development firm, and really this is only one of the projects of it. I mean, you've got other things that you do. I mean, I'm always stunned at just the sheer number of things that you're able to run at the same time, but don't you also have a market in addition to the ITVFest, which now in and of itself is its own entity that really is making moves in the industry. You've got your own marketing company, you own a store, right? You've got a couple other things that you do.
Right, yeah. So the firm that I have, the Green Mountain Marketing Group, its purpose is to generate spring, summer, and fall revenue in Dover, Vermont. Dover is known as a ski town. It does somewhere between Dover and Wilmington, the valley here in Vermont, does somewhere around $80 million in tourism revenue during the winter months, and about 40% of that during the other 8 months a year. So I thought, the summer here is one of the most beautiful times of the year. Let's build the summer up. So I created the greenmountainvermont.com website, which was the first one to really put all of the things that there are to do around here on the same, on the same site. Created the Green Mountain Adventure Challenge, which is a big outdoor summer hiking event, so that you solve riddles and puzzles and you have to play all these games, and it's very geeky, very math-based, and it has its very loyal audience to it. We had about 2,000 people that come up and do that on the summers. the local retail store in town. Dover is a tourist town with no tourism retail store, which was very strange. We have sports stores where you can buy skis and stuff, but we don't have a Vermont gift shop or anything. So yeah, all at ITV Fest coming in the fall. Obviously, the fundamental purpose of all of this is there's a town in Dover, Vermont, that it's kind of like a blank monopoly board. And if I'm in New York or LA, you don't ever have the opportunity to create a new economic community somewhere big like that. This is kind of a blank sheet of paper, and I got to start creating stuff.
It's really exciting because I don't think there's a lot of people that look at sort of basically a ski town, or maybe in the summertime it's a beach town where approximately half the year the town is essentially empty. I don't think there's a lot of people that sort of look at that and say, here's an opportunity to basically create something. Here's a blank slate, essentially, right? A bunch of empty hotel rooms, a bunch of empty restaurants. Here's this completely empty thing. I think I'll just go find a way to fill them, right? I mean, to me, that is just, it's a truly entrepreneurial way of doing things.
That's exactly what's going on, yep.
So it's been a really interesting sort of step through these things to see what brings you to Dover, and, the ups and downs of running something like this with its financial, because really it makes no money, and then you've got a weekend where you have to do all this stuff and make a lot of money in a really short period of time, and then spend a lot of money for all the things that go into an event. Anybody that's ever run an event knows that it's a lot that has to happen very quickly. So no money comes in, lots of money gets spent, lots of money has to go out. It's really up and down. But getting back to sort of your entrepreneurial journey, the next phase of it, I'm told, is a channel for the ITV Fest, kind of like a Hulu or a Netflix that comes up on your Apple TV or your Roku box or whatever it is. What is that all about?
Yeah, so the next evolution in this is, since the move to Vermont, the artists have really taken to appreciating the community that we're building. It's filled with honest artists. It's filled with honest executives within the industry. They know that it's a safe space where their work and time is valued. And what's come out of that community is there are literally hundreds of television pilots and web series who are good enough to be broadcast on any network, any night of the week. Those moments when you go home and you're flipping through TV or you're flipping through Netflix or something and you go, wow, there's just nothing to watch. I have the unfair advantage of being one of the only people who gets to see and know that there is an entire universe of really amazing programming out there that the rest of the world hasn't had the chance to see yet. And I am tired of these artists being stonewalled in a way by the bigger networks and studios, not because the networks and studios necessarily look down on them or anything. It's just that their development slates are already 200 or 300 projects deep. Adding another small independent project on doesn't really, blow up. It isn't exciting to the business model of a major studio, understandably. So what I've decided to do is take all of these shows and put them on a platform, just like you would have on your Apple TV box or Roku box, and connect them directly with the audiences. Now, just as a quick side note on that, of the 212 shows that have screened at ITV Fest in Vermont from 2013 to 2015, 95 of them are already publicly available on YouTube. So they already have some type of a viewership base and history. It just so happens that combined viewership is over 40 million.
Over 40 million viewers have
already watched half of the shows that have come through ITV Fest.
40 million viewers watch half of the shows that have come through ITV Fest. So if I took actually you used to work for HBO, so you probably know these numbers. If I took a Game of Thrones or a Sopranos or something like that, how many viewers would one of those have?
They never release the numbers publicly, but at the best, they're getting 8 million, 10 million a week. Now, remember, that's on a weekly basis, and that's that's an amazing thing. But the point of the aggregate audience that we already have for the festival is that we're not starting off with zero audience here. These are shows that already have built-in audiences, and these audiences don't know of each other yet, because when you're on YouTube and you watch your favorite little web series, you don't know how to go and find the next best web series that's out there that you like. That's what the festival does. It acts as a human filter so that we're putting the 100 best TV shows and web series from around the world in the same place. I think what's going to happen is that all these audiences are going to start discovering an entire new world of content they never knew existed before, and that's going to be pretty exciting.
Well, I do. It's one of the things I do find frustrating, actually, is if I find something that's actually good on YouTube, or Web TV. I mean, now what I do is I go to the ITVFest website, I look for all the people that have been chosen to be in the festival, and I choose to go find their content online right now. It's just
Right.
because basically I use ITVFest as my own filter, because I know if it made it to ITVFest, if I'm in the mood for a comedy, I go to the comedy section, I see what made it into ITVFest, and I go watch it, which is a really easy thing to do. So basically, I guess I'm kind of doing what people would do if they actually come to your channel.
You are proving the model, and the only question we have left to answer is if we did that for you and put it on your Roku box at home, would you pay $1 a month for it? That's the big unanswered $1 million question right now.
Well, there's a lot of questions under that, right? Because then you'd have to charge. Then the transaction company comes in. And I don't know if it's $1 a month or $5 a month. I don't know what I'd pay. I'd certainly pay $5 a month if that's just me. But it's a really important business model question, right? I mean, I'm guessing this is sort of the next phase of your challenge around that is really the business model that gets wrapped around. When you've got one of those little boxes on your Roku or your Apple TV, what's the business model behind it? And Netflix has a different business model than Amazon Prime, which has a different business model than Hulu, which has a different business model than Sundance Channel, right? They all have their own business model, and I guess that's part of one of the challenges for you right now is figuring out what that's going to be.
It is, and it's one of those things where it's been frustrating for the last few years when I go around and talk about trying to raise sponsorship money or anything, or get people to come to the festival, and they ask, "Well, what is the festival about?" And I say it's independent television. The blank stares I get. Nobody knows what those two words mean when you put them together like that yet. You say the words independent television, and people kind of get a little confused. They don't really understand what you're talking about. At first, that was really frustrating to me. But then I realized it shouldn't be a frustration. It's an opportunity, because we get to be the ones that define going forward what independent television is going to mean on a worldwide scale. And that is something that's really exciting. So by the end of the 2016, everybody will at least have heard the phrase independent television. And whether they buy into it or not, to get the opportunity in the 21st century to actually define an entire segment of the entertainment industry is something I never thought was even available.
Wow. Wow, what an amazing opportunity. I've actually, when referring to Greater Good Entrepreneur, I often refer to it as a web TV series rather than an independent television TV series. Do you use both of those terms?
I do. I use them interchangeably depending on who I'm talking to. I find that the words web TV make a little more sense to people because it gives them an idea of how they're watching it.
Right.
I don't know why, but maybe the moniker independent television is going to end up becoming web television.
Right.
We'll see. Well, that's going to be entirely based upon how the audiences react. So.
Right. I guess that's the challenge of it. Well, 40 million people. I mean, I know any website or any channel would love to have that kind of audience. And I know as a viewer, I've always found it frustrating because YouTube is sort of the general place where you go to find this kind of stuff, and yet there is no suggestion engine there that really has any value at all. It's just got those things along the side. You can't even read the title. You have no idea what to do. Whereas you're in a Netflix or you're in a Hulu, even at least with IMDb, there's some sort of suggestion engine that actually is not too bad. But again, all that stuff's already been vetted, right? You're not getting the real. You've already had that be vetted by a bunch of corporations before it even reaches me. And it's sort of like, how can I find the really new, good stuff that hasn't even gotten through those filters yet? And right now, there really is no other way, right?
There isn't another way. And the technological hurdles to creating that filter are so extreme that even the big guys, Apple, Google, the AI companies that are out there, they will never be able to, nobody will ever be able to know exactly what you're feeling and what kind of mood you're in and what you really want to watch and what you're really looking for when you're sitting on your couch at night. They're going to start getting close, but to do it from an algorithm perspective is so cumbersome that I think doing it from a human filter process, which is what the festival is an advantage that we have. Imagine if there was a Netflix festival, or imagine if ABC had its own festival, or HBO had its own festival. That's what makes us unique and different, is that we're going to be the first content channel born out of a festival. Now, people will say, hey, wait a minute, Sundance is doing this. And it's true in a way. They are. However, they're doing it strictly for film. They are not doing it for television and web series, which is an entirely different animal, especially when it comes to audience retention. So that is something that is on the horizon, and I think our human process can never really be replicated by an algorithm.
Right, right. Well, the channel sounds incredibly exciting. I do have one other thing. I notice behind you, what does it say? It can be fun to do the impossible. Is that the moniker up on your wall there?
You picked up on that, huh?
Very nice, very nice. Philip, this has been great. What an exciting journey. I know it's still got a lot of ups and downs. I suspect that'll be your journey for many years. And anything else you want us to know before we sign off?
Not so much know about me or anything, but you had mentioned from the top that this was a show about social entrepreneurships, and the viewers and the people that are listening are at different levels in their entrepreneurial careers. Something that I always remind myself, and when I'm teaching courses, whether it's about television or about entrepreneurship, that I always like to kind of close with, is just the only way that an idea stops, dies, ends, the only way a company doesn't continue on the next day isn't because if you owe a bill, or if you're having trouble, or you can't find the right people you need or anything. The only thing that kills an entrepreneurial idea is when the entrepreneur decides to stop. So as long as you continue, everything else around you will find a way. You're going to have ugly patches. You're going to have a lot of people that are probably angry at you. You're going to have nights where, you're eating dinner at 7-Eleven or whatever it is. Those things are natural. They're normal. And the only thing that you can't do is give up on it.
Right. Wow. That's that really is a big piece of your story. I mean, I just can't believe you've had a lot of ups and downs. You said you moved back to Vermont because your father was sick. Did everything come out okay there?
Yeah, luckily there's a medical miracle pill that they have for some specific types of ailments these days, and luckily one of them took to him, and he's gonna die well from old age before he's sick again. So it's everything's good there.
And so you could have moved back to LA a long time ago if you wanted to. You didn't need to stay in a town of 900 in Vermont.
No, I could have moved back right in the probably summer of 2011 and gone back to everything. But when you see a place and an opportunity, sometimes no matter how many people tell you it's crazy, that's the sign that you're actually making the right move.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot. Okay, that's been Greater Good Entrepreneur with Philip Gilpin. It's been great to have you here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Jim.